And as always, your views and comments are welcome on this show. Look for us on our social media handles at Joy News on Facebook and on Twitter. Drop your comments with the hashtag The Pulse. We'll be glad to share your thoughts with the rest of the world. Now, there are fresh and, shall I say, effective measures aimed at getting government back to the negotiation table, but they are deadly too. In fact, today, government pharmacists across the country are intensifying their strike as it enters the second week. They are withdrawing emergency services and inpatient care, plunging public health care into disarray. GOPA is on strike following a breakdown in negotiations with government over their interim market premium grade structure placement and conditions of service. And this has led to some patients in dire need of medication struggling as a result. Executives of GOPA have been addressing a news conference today in Accra.
We know that for some of our members, they are giving some critical services at emergencies and all that. But from the 10 days, if you don't hear anything from government, we are going to activate another phase where it's going to be total withdrawal of all services. In addition to that, we have other arsenals up our sleeves we don't want to give to the public.
Like you rightly said, this has been ongoing for over 6 years or close to 6 years. It's traveled to cabinet meetings, wherever it needs to go to. Do you think by this action or by this new measures you are going to outline will in any way make any change?
We hope so.
If you're hoping so, is it not the life of your dear patients whom you describe that you are putting at risk now?
You see, whenever I'm given the opportunity, I always say that it's unfortunate we have to travel this path of withdrawing our services. But we have also come to the realization that having endured all committees, all the statutory bodies, engagement of statutory bodies, and we are still at where we are, then we have no option than to exercise another option in the Constitution, which is strike.
Well, the group also called the bluff or the decision by the National Labour Commission to compel them to return to work. National Chairman for GOPA, Ajima Medu, says they are ready to face the NLC in court.
Since we declared this strike, the National Labour Commission has purportedly rushed to court to sue GOPA. We are both surprised at their conduct and impressed with the haste with which they have rushed to court. They have issued express directives on our grievances that Fair Wages and Salaries Commission have openly flouted over 2 years ago. Yet, the National Labour Commission has deemed it necessary to activate the legal process of enforcing their order. Be that as it may, we want to assure the National Labour Commission that GOPA is ready and determined to meet them in court. National Labour Commission has issued a directive that we appear before them tomorrow, Wednesday, 14th September. We will appear to the extent that the issues are on the stalled conditions of service negotiations. We do not believe that there is anything more on our salaries for the National Labour Commission to adjudicate on after 6 years. Let us add that the duration of cases before the National Labour Commission is a big threat to industrial harmony in Ghana. Matters concerning essential services like GOPA are supposed to be addressed in 3 working days. These issues have been before the Commission for nearly 6 years. Yes, 6 calendar years. The Minister of Labour and Employment Relations, the Minister, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, has called on us to return to work because our interim market premium were not captured in the budget of 2016. This is rather strange and bizarre, as these issues have been in his ministry over the last 3 years and still counting. We respectfully urge the Honorable Minister to check his notes with his immediate predecessor, Honorable Niyama Shite, or the former Chief of Staff, Honorable Prosper Bani, or any of the last 4 health ministers and their deputies in the persons of Honorable Yelechre, Honorable Sherry Aite, Honorable Abambagbin, and Honorable Rojo Metununu to fully appreciate how long GOSPA has endured assurances and commitments from government. We cannot, and I repeat, we cannot buy into any more promises of tomorrow. The Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has, through its Grievance Review Committee, released a self-serving report that seeks, unfortunately, to throw dust into the eyes of the public, pitch us against our colleague doctors and nurses, and threaten industrial mayhem and chaos if government resolves the GOSPA issue. We have seen, heard, and read these tactics for years. We are not asking for favors. We are demanding that the time-tested relativities that reflect in salaries for everyone in the health sector, which was duly affirmed and fortified by the PricewaterhouseCoopers job revaluation, should be the basis for paying pharmacists. We won't compromise on what is our due and has been proven scientifically. We are also shocked at a statement purportedly issued from the Ministry of Health this weekend, calling on pharmacy managers to open facilities for support staff to provide pharmaceutical services to Ghanaians as a solution to this action. We want to repeat that our unfortunate patients are not the target of this action. Government can, and if it genuinely wants to restore the full range of pharmaceutical service, do it in no time in all facilities. This can be done by seeing to the equitable and fair demands of GOSPA. We remind the minister that all pharmacist managers he may have been advised to recall are critical victims of the 6-year-old injustice and inequity, and who, having endured in our the committee's promises and assurances, have been compelled to withdraw their services out of frustration.
So GOSPA has identified what the problem is and what, in their view, should be the way to fix this. But the only reason that will make GOSPA, over 600 members, in fact, of that group, return to work is when government shows commitment, in their view, towards their demands.
One thing is clear, that whatever it takes to draw the attention of the first president of the first citizen of the land will be done, for him to also appreciate the plight of hospital pharmacists over the last 6 years. We are not saying that all our whatever, even if we are to be awarded, all our back pay should be paid at a go or whatever. We just want the processes, the commitment. Let's sit down. You have an issue. This is how we want to address it. Let's put pen to paper so that our members can be talked to out of this strike. Because as it stands now, we are mirroring the sentiments of our members. And I, as the chairman, cannot call off this strike without a national delegates meeting. So until there is something expressly written, which is binding on both parties, and which our members believe that it will not be one of the things we have experienced before which has not been implemented. Even with that, we will still have to assess whatever engagement that goes on, report appropriately to our national delegates, and we take it over from there.
So they may have made their points quite clear at that news conference, but let's subject some of the claims they make and what, in their view, should be the roadmap in fixing this problem. General Secretary for GOSPA, Mr. Owaife Owusu Emmanuel, joins us now in the studio. Did I get your name correct?
Owaife
Owusu Emmanuel. Thank you, sir, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
So, yes, you've been on strike for 1 week. Week 2 is what we are seeing now. Why have you still not found that common ground with government to stop this?
This is a question that should squarely be asked government.
I'm asking you first.
Unfortunately, it presupposes that government is not giving much attention to our issues, and they are not appreciating the fact that we are essential service workers, and issues that pertain to us need to be exercised with some level of emergency so that things can properly be sorted out.
And you're saying that between the day you started the strike and today, there's been virtually no negotiations, no meetings at all?
We have not had any communication with government as at day 9 of the strike.
Nothing at all?
Not to our notice.
Does this not say something about your action and how appropriate or not it is? Because if you're saying that you provide an essential service, yes, you have your demands, but do you consider the one who's suffering at your expense?
Well, we do appreciate the patients we attend to, and that is the very reason why we have alluded to 6 years of negotiations, I mean, without trying to even disturb the labor front in one way or the other. And that is the very reason why government has to attach some level of importance to this and try to bring issues to a finality. You can't be negotiating with a government, you can't be meeting government when government seems to have a very rigid position not to really deal with your issues. And it's very, very unfortunate looking at the very essential services we provide as pharmacists.
Is it also because you've given them a very small window for negotiations where you say that it has to be your way or the highway?
That has never been the situation, and it has not been so. You see, when we protested, or when we petitioned the interim market premium since its introduction, the point we made was very clear. Fair Wages and Salaries Commission mandated to see to the implementation of the single spine pay policy are supposed to have one basic thing, and that is equal remuneration for equal work. And here we are talking about public sector pharmacists. So if you're a pharmacist in one organization of government and you are another one is in another organization, they ought to be equally remunerated. And this is the situation we are saying that those of us in the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health have been placed on a premium starting from 0.58, whilst our colleagues in the university hospitals and some other organizations are on a premium of 1.14, and that is purely, I mean, inequity.
No, okay, you call it inequity, but have you bothered to ask what went into this grading and where they put you and why they put you there?
Grading for pharmacists, and even for that matter the whole of the public service, was of course through a conscious process where job evaluations was done, PricewaterhouseCoopers evaluation results, etc. came through. But not to be even belabor that point, as I said, when Fair Wages and Salaries Commission initiated this process, we petitioned. It went through a system where at a point in time a cabinet subcommittee was set up. This committee, through various investigations, came out with the overwhelming recommendations that we have seen from all the hearings, including the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission themselves, that GOPA members, that is, members of the Government and Hospital Pharmacists Association, have not been treated fairly. So Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, just go ahead, implement this premium of 1.14 for them, just as their colleagues in other, governmental institutions. And then on their grade structure and placement, start them from 18H and then cascade the grade, the level upwards up to the consultant grade. But this, unfortunately, has not been implemented.
So you raised this issue 6 years ago?
Yes, it started from then.
Okay, so if for 6 years you've been at this and you've not pushed hard enough for what you require, and then 6 years down the line, I'm a patient, I walk to Koforidua in dire need of medication, I'm told, sorry, you can't get the service. Why? Because GOPA has been negotiating for something for 6 years, they've not received it, and so they've closed shop because of that.
I'm happy you talked about we did not push hard enough. Yes, at those times we seemed to, in order to still be at the good front of caring for our patients, just receiving verbal assurances from government.
So now you don't care who dies?
Not exactly so. We are saying we can no more work with mere verbal assurances from anybody in government. We cannot we cannot work with that.
Mr. Rafi, you are a pharmacist.
Sure.
You agree that you provide an essential service. Sure. The lives of people are in your hands at any point when they come to buy a drug. You appreciate that, don't you?
Sure.
So, are you considering the people who are suffering and may die as a result of your actions?
That is the exact point we are making. You see, our motto says amicus humanis generis, friends of the human race.
Yes.
6 years down the line, you are underpaid. 6 years down the line, you are made worse off. 6 years down the line, you also have families to cater for.
So a few people die is enough?
Oh no, we don't.
To get what you want?
Not exactly so. You know, I mean, that is not, but at a point in time, we also have lives to live. We also have families to cater for. How long should we suffer because somebody in government, for one reason or the other, doesn't want to act?
You still haven't answered my question. That based on the things that you
we
want,
appreciate
people may die or are even dying that we are not even hearing of. Who accounts for those lives because of your action and the things you want?
I would say that the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission should be squarely blamed for this. And you see, it is not like we are happy with the situation we had to put ourselves in, because these people, of course, are our mothers, fathers, grandmothers, some are our children. You get it? And we appreciate the work we do. But at a point in time, if government is refusing to act because 1 or 2 persons say so, they have to be pushed to act. Negotiating for 6 years down the line is no joke.
So after 6 years, every element of your job as an essential service can be put on the back burner until you get what you want.
Per the labor law, issues that pertains to essential service workers are supposed to be dealt with in 3 days. And if it is not amicably settled, it has to go through a compulsory negotiations process of maximum of 2 weeks, after which the National Labour Commission even has to rule and action made appropriately. We have gone through the mill where the National Labour Commission themselves have issued a directive, a ruling, but unfortunately they were unable to enforce their own ruling by the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission.
So if it's a case of enforcement which is not being done, why not seek legal action from the courts to impress upon them to take this action, rather than taking the high road of closing shop and people virtually on life support because of your actions?
It's one of the options we are critically considering.
But you have taken the last option,
which is
to withdraw your service.
What is the best way to make government understand your issues?
Because you said that if the legal option is one of the options that can be considered, I imagine that can be that option before you lay down your tools.
You see, we have gotten to a point where we, as at now, seek the attention of the first gentleman of the land, because we have actually even lost faith in the National Labour Commission, because they themselves were not able to enforce their own ruling.
Okay, I get the point about where you are directing this, but you are doing this as last resort. But some will say that may not be your last resort. If there's a legal option to do this, why not do it? Save all of us the trouble of going to government hospital pharmacies and not getting drugs.
Of course, you see, everybody's role in one way or the other in the health service will have an impact on the patient. And unfortunately, when issues like this happen, it's the patients who may unfortunately be able to suffer. And that is the very reason why we are saying government should just tune their ears down and listen to the people, listen to the masses. They should listen to the cry of the people and get back to it, because we believe government has the power to finalize this in less than 24 hours.
I tell you what,
if they really want to
on this. They said that yes, we've seen the doctor's example in the past of they pushing, withdrawing services. In the end, governments give them what they want. So you are only following a precedence of evidence where a body, an association, a labor union within the health front goes on this line, gets what they want. You're also doing same and not considering the people that are dying or are hurting as a result of this.
We are very considerate.
But how? We have not seen that in your action.
6 years down the line, will you entertain being underpaid for 6 years working with multimedia? I don't think you will.
Well, my service is different from yours. Yours is essential. People's lives are in your hands.
And that is the very reason why government has to attach some level of importance and urgency in resolving our issues.
And the only way possible is for the one out there who needs care to suffer as a result.
Because we have gone through the mill, we have gone through all these processes, and government is not giving much attention.
Now, we've already heard from people in government, especially the employment minister made mention today that in terms of the funds needed to meet your demands, they are not available.
And that is the exact point we made in our press statement. That stance will be is a little bit, astonishing.
Why?
Government, if you are, does it presuppose that government had already taken an entrenched position not to pay these pharmacists, or not to, conclude things in a way that will be beneficial to the pharmacists?
But do you also appreciate that 6 years ago, when this line was taken, conditions then are totally different from what it is today?
There have been a lot of things. Pharmacists, we are just about 700 in number. 700 in number. We have situations in this country, even for this year alone, where the financial clearance have been given to about 3,000 of, one particular group of health workers, and another 400 given to one other group of health workers. So what is the big deal? Sorting out 700 pharmacists.
How much money, and I'm sure you know this, how much money is required to take care of all your needs as you spelled out?
As at now, the full financial calculations will have to be done. But as at 2012, when even the sub-cabinet committee was approved and financial figures put together, it was less than 2 million Ghana cedis.
So you're saying that if 2 million Ghana cedis is the amount, let's say it may have appreciated over the years, whatever the amount is, you're saying that government can pay and should not give excuses. Is that what you're saying?
We are saying so, and we are talking about a clear-cut, unambiguous commitment from government. You see, yes, they are our employers. They can sit down with us. They, hey, pharmacists, this and that is the very problem we are facing. Maybe for one reason or the other, we can't pay you all that you need. But we are proposing this. Maybe we are going to pay you monthly. Pay maybe 4 months arrears every month, maybe for the next 4 months. Let us come to an agreeable position from both sides. Let us put pen to paper, sign things, so that we can have something concrete, to work with.
Now, you say this, but you also bear in mind that for this year, we know we are already on a program with the IMF. The spending limits have been capped, which means that if what you're asking for was not budgeted for in this year's financial statement, it cannot happen. That's the reality.
We understand that.
So where do you want government to go get that money to pay you from?
No, you see, from all these statements from the Minister of Labour and Employment Relations, etc., they haven't concretized anything with us on paper. We just hear it in the air. Nothing has been communicated even to us officially. If that is government's position, they can come, sit down with us. Then we have agreeable, we have something agreeable, tangible, and understandable between both parties. And when that happens, we will gladly call our delegates, sit them down and say, this is what government is proposing to you. Then we can work with it. But until that, we can't just accept any oral, statement from any.
Okay. Let me bring in the spokesperson for the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, Mr. Elankra. He's joining us here as part of the conversation on the issues being raised by GOSPA today. Mr. Elankra, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Francis. How are you doing?
Well, I'm well, but GOSPA clearly are not. They're saying that they are intensifying their action for one more week. How do you respond to their issues? They say that for Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, your job was to ensure that what was agreed in 2010 is actually implemented. You failed to implement that.
Thank you for having me. And let me say good afternoon to my colleague on the other side. It's unfortunate that it has had to come to this, but it's not entirely accurate that the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission hasn't done anything about their concerns. A number of them were brought to us. We have worked and accepted most of them, and we're left with just a couple of them that we believe will not be consistent with the policy. In any case, the agreements that you're talking about were just recommendations. I'm sure they've mentioned some from a ministerial committee, something from Chief of Staff's office, etc. They are just recommendations, and it's up to us at the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to ensure that those recommendations are consistent with the policy. At the moment we shift it or apply anything that is not consistent with the policy, it will affect other areas of the structure.
Okay, Mr. Ankra, just one thing to add. You've mentioned that you have been dealing with their issues for a while now. Some of them you've dealt with. There are a couple more. How many have you dealt with?
Well, there were concerns with their grading structure, and there were parts that we adjusted. There were concerns with other parts of their position on the structure, which we dealt with, and they themselves will confirm that. In fact, the last time we met at the National Labour Commission, the representatives of GOPA themselves said there have been tremendous improvements with in their negotiations with Fair Wages and Salaries Commission.
Okay, those are the ones you've mentioned. How about the interim market premium? That's one of the first things they mentioned as one of the things you have not fixed. Why has it become difficult for you to do it?
Good one. The thing about the interim market premium is not it is not true. I mean, GOPA will have to be very fair with us. It is not true that they are not enjoying interim market premium. GOPA is indeed enjoying interim market premium. Their problem there is they want to be given the same premium as another group, which is also on the single spine pay policy, and it doesn't work like that. So they are not talking about
on the same level to get the same amount, and not the disparity they're seeing.
This is the thing. They gave us the figures. Now, the way we compute the interim market premium is consistent with the number of additional duty hours. You know, they were enjoying additional duty hours allowances. Before you get interim market premium, you should be able to indicate what premium you were enjoying prior to your coming onto the single spine. And they were enjoying additional duty hours, and they computed the number of hours, and we used that to set what they earn in terms of interim market premium. But at the moment, they are not looking into what is in their plate before them. They are looking into somebody else's plate to push to get what they are looking for.
Isn't it also because what's on their plate is not enough, and that's why they're asking for more?
Well, it's about additional duty hours per what they. We don't work in the health services. We work with the figures they bring to us, and so it's the number of hours, and that was how it was computed, and we arrived at the figure. And as at then, they did not have an issue with it. In any case, government white paper has been issued in connection with how we apply market premium and how we manage interim market premium, and it is clear in there that straight after the institution of the government white paper, all negotiations on interim market premium ceased. So at the moment, there is nothing we can do. And this is not a decision of Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. This is a directive from government, and it's on the white paper, which is entirely quotable.
So it means that as GOPA continues with this action and with their demands, there is no way you meet them at their point of demand?
That sounds a bit harsh, but the thing is, if we had the opportunity to do so, we could. But how it is applied on the single spine. For instance, just imagine if let me use a pidgin word, if we lose guard and say, okay, well, we don't want GOPA to go on, to extend their strike, so let's give them what they want. You could just imagine what will happen from other sectors, because other sectors will want to push for more, but the thing is, there is a line, there's a drawn line as to how far we can go when we are implementing this.
But Mr. Ankra, are you also considering the ones that are suffering here? Yes, it may be a push and pull between GOPA, Fair Wages, and government, but the ones that are suffering are those who walk to the pharmacies in dire need of the drugs. How about them? How do you equate them in this whole scenario?
It is so sad that the taxpayer will have to suffer as a result of this. First of all, let's remember, according to the Labour Act, and this is not Fair Wages and Salaries Commission speaking, the Labour Act says essential services are not supposed to go on strike. GOPA are essential services, and they are on strike. The Labour Act does not give conditions at all. It says essential services. The Labour Act actually directs that within a number of days, their issues must be addressed. And I'm sure they will advance.
That it's been 6 years, not 3 days.
Yeah, but then the Labour Act does not say whatever essential services demand must be given to them. Then you can imagine. The Labour Act says within 14 days it must be addressed, and we have addressed it. GOPA keeps going and coming back. You can imagine some of their issues on negotiations. We have negotiated with everyone in the health sector. All of them are satisfied. All of them have gone back. It is only GOPA that keeps coming back with the same thing over and over and over again. Somehow, they believe that persistence will shift the Fair Wages' position, but unfortunately, we are working with rules and regulations, and until those rules change, unfortunately, we have to remain that way. But remember, those who are suffering are the taxpayers. Let's bear this at the back of our minds. Pharmacists are enjoying salaries every month. Pharmacists are enjoying allowances every month. Pharmacists are enjoying interim market premium, what they are on strike for, which people are suffering on. They are enjoying their interim market premiums at the moment. So let's not give the picture that there is mass suffering out there and there is deprivation out there. They are enjoying completely what they are entitled to on the single spine pay policy. People are suffering. People with serious health conditions are suffering because the pharmacists are turning down what they have been offered so far, and they really are not looking into the suffering that is being meted out to people.
Okay, let me pick away from Mr. Oyafi on this point you make. So, Mr. Oyafi, you've heard him. He says that they've offered you what they can realistically give you, but you're just deciding with a very entrenched position not to give in.
You see, this is the particular posture of the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, and that is exactly why we are where we are today. You see, you are talking about they did not implement the National Labour Commission directive as it is. They were supposed to start from a particular grade and then cascade it upwards. And if they talk about issue of what government white paper is on market premium, and I can tell him that no group of public sector workers, as we speak now, is enjoying market premium. We are all on an interim market premium. We had an issue with us, with ours, for which we actually petitioned, and that is what we are talking about. So you can't make a statement about the fact that it is something they cannot do something about.
But again, he says that
in the
you've taken an entrenched position.
Not exactly so.
Give room for compromise. So we fix this.
In the spirit of single spine salary structure, if you are talking about, you see, in the spirit of the single spine salary structure, why should you have two pharmacists, same government, two pharmacists, and you are talking about what? Some different institutions. Then why single spine salary? Why single spine?
But of course, there is grading on the spine, is there not?
You see,
you agree there's grading.
We are talking about having even senior specialists who are pharmacists in the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health who are not on an interim market premium of even up to 1. The highest they enjoy now is up to 0.57. We are talking about equity, we are talking about fairness. If they think they have done their work absolutely, they should just go ahead and implement the recommendations of the Cabinet Subcommittee.
Okay. Mr. Ankra, I'll give the final word to you on this. So you're saying nothing can be done about it, but what can we do as we're seeing that both sides do not want to compromise?
Well, what's his name? I didn't get his name. Let me address
Mr. Oyafi.
Mr. Oyafi, good afternoon. We just debating. I hope it's not a quarrel out there. This is the thing. He mentioned the fact that we are not implementing market premium. That is absolutely true. What we are implementing now is interim market premium. But the market premium, the white paper on the market premium states clearly what we are supposed to do in terms of the implementation of interim market premium. It's clear. It says we should put a hold on it. I don't have it here, so I would have quoted exactly where it is for you based on our website. So it is clear. Although we're not implementing government white paper, the market premium, we are following instructions per the white paper as pertains to the interim market premium. What he also mentioned recommendations from a ministerial committee. And Francis, let me ask you one question. In this country, the Republic of Ghana, which institution has been mandated to deal with salary issues in the public service? Is it ministerial committees or is the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission? Is there any other institution supposed to be working on them? It's Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. And we are supposed to be applying it according to the regulations of the policy. Recommendations are welcome, definitely, but then we have to make sure that they are consistent with the tenets of the policy. That's why it's unfortunate. Nobody at Fair Wages and Salaries Commission is sitting down hoping for the worst for anybody. It's our duty to ensure that everybody is fine. There's equity, there's transparency across board. But there will be inequity the moment we apply for GOPA the different rules as we apply with others. That is where the equity will start from.
All right. Mr. Anka, thank you for your time. You asked me a question, but you answered eventually. But thank you for joining us.
I know you would have avoided it.
Head of Public Affairs for the Wages and Salaries Commission joining us here on the call. Also, Mr. Yafi, so clearly you've made a demand. Wages says, no, we can't grant it. Are you still going to go ahead with the strike? For how long would you do this?
We are on it. And as we indicated in our press statement this morning, 10 days from today, we would upgrade it.
And the grass will suffer. And we can't get the drugs.
But governments can still do the needful.
Thank you, sir, for your time. I'm sure many out there will have your own, views on what you're saying and what government is also espousing on this matter. Let's see where this goes and whether or not we will see day 10 on this issue or not. But let's quickly go now to the Eastern Regional Capital, Koforidua, because the flooding situation continues to devastate communities there. Now, as the academic year began actually today, some children who are among the hundreds of displaced persons are unable to go to school. They say their school uniforms and other belongings have either been washed away or have been destroyed. The Regional NADMO office is preparing as we speak to distribute relief items to the over 700 victims of the floods who've been sleeping in the open for the past 3 days following the inability of the New Job and District Office to provide shelter for the victims. Some houses are still submerged as rain is forecast for every day for the next 7 days, in some cases with accompanying thunderstorms. We can now get an update from Maxwell Kudeko, who is in the community, to give us an update on how things are looking in Koforidua. Maxwell, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Francis.
Is it raining in Koforidua now as we speak?
Not really.
Okay, but describe to us how things are looking. Are the floodwaters receding yet?
Well, if you enter into the homes of the victims or affected persons, you see that they are still drying up their belongings, i.e. mattresses, clothes, and what have you. So they are still recovering from the effect of the flooding as we speak now.
We know some children were unable to go to school today. How bad was that situation?
Yeah, a couple of the children were unable to go to school because they have lost either lost their books and their school uniform, while others' own has also been wet beyond use as we speak now. So most of the parents decided to keep them home, so they put their house in order before they can prepare for them to start school as school reopens.
The last time we checked, over 700 people have been affected as a result of these developments in Koforidua. Has that number increased, and what's being done for them, especially by NADMO?
Personally, the officials of NADMO have not concluded their assessment of the situation. The figure you are mentioned is the earlier figure they had that was yesterday after the assessment in the Zongo community. It's likely that if they finish with the impact assessment, the number would increase. So, but for now, this is the figure we have in the Zongo community alone.
Okay, and we know that NADMO will distribute the items today. Do we know how soon?
Well, almost about 1 hour ago, the regional NADMO coordinator, Mr. Ransford Boache, handed over some items to the assemblyman of the Musco A and B electoral area in the person of Honorable Isaka. The Abdul Latif, that's the name of the assembly man for the area. Mm-hmm. And then he donated, or he handed the items to them for onward distribution to the victims. However, the items that was handed over to the assembly man, one would say that it's not enough. They handed over 150 mattresses, the single size mattress. People call it student mattress, 150 of them. Blankets, 150. Second-hand clothing, they gave them 5 bills. They gave them some pieces of cups, washing bowl, plates, and few items. They also added rice, oil, and maize to them. But if you look at the number of people affected. So I asked the NADMO coordinator whether he's is convinced that the item donated so far will be enough or adequate for the victim. But he tells me that NADMO cannot take care of everybody who is affected. So what they're doing is that they will reach out to those who are more vulnerable, the vulnerable in the society who were affected. He believes that some of the victims have money or they can raise money to take care of
themselves. Okay, but one thing that's very important, Maxwell, here is this. For those who slept in the open, are they getting any shelter today?
We just believing and hoping that before close of day, the assemblyman will distribute some of the mattress, because many of them, as we speak, they are still putting their homes in order. Because mattresses and stuffing chairs were all soaked with water, they cannot sleep on them. As of last night, when I visited them last night around 10 p.m., some had spread cloth on the floor. They have spread cloth on the floor, and they were lying on it with their family. So if the assemblyman is able to distribute the mattress to them before evening, then we are hopeful that the situation could be better.
From Koforidua in the eastern region. So clearly, the devastation has really hit hard residents of Koforidua. We learned that NADMO will later this evening distribute some more relief items. Let's see how that goes. Now, still ahead here on the show, with just 83 days to election 2016, you might be still shopping for that one presidential candidate to vote for, and we just might have another one for you. We know of lawyers, we know of businessmen, doctors, but have you ever thought of a pastor becoming a presidential candidate or even a hopeful for this year's elections? We'll have him here in the studio, share with us why he wants to be president and why you should be voting for him. All that and more after the break. Stay with us. You're welcome back. Let's take you now to Alisa Hotel. And what's happening is that there is actually a forum by civil society organizations who have been presenting their own positions on why they think that the decision of government and media to hand the ECG to a private concessionaire is not the way to go. Let's cross over live now for details and highlights of that forum which is underway.
And once we have those economic rates, where you use a mathematical formula to determine tariff regimes, it means that many of the people that we seek to protect today will be worse off. And I'm saying that those who will be worse off are not just those of us seated here, but the poor citizens. I mean, people who are engaged as artisans, people who are seamstresses, hairdressers, people who have small businesses, who have medium businesses. They are the people who are going to suffer, and not those of us seated here. Because as for us, we receive our incomes. So at the end of the month, at least we'll have something to pay for electricity if it's high. Now, we also have this problem of independent regulation as against self-regulation, which should be looked at in this whole scheme of events. You see, if you look at the objective of IFC in determining the tariffs, it undermines PWRC Act 538 of 1997, which grants PWRC the power to determine tariffs. Once you give away this provision, it means that we are going to have two regimes of tariffing. You know that because of time, I can't go into the details, but NETCO is not going to be affected. It's only the Electricity Corporation of Ghana, which is about 70% of electricity production and supply, that is going to be affected. And so that, for me, is a critical issue. And again, if you look at Article 7.1 of the compact, the MMC compact agreement that is being proposed, it states, and I quote, "The government will proceed in a timely manner to complete all of its domestic requirements for the compact to enter into force. The parties understand that this compact and the program integration agreement, upon entering into force, will prevail over the domestic laws of Ghana." And that, for me, sums it all up. And so somebody who is an interested party coming into our country and then facing tax tariffs brings in a new company, which is NUCO. in the documents that I've chanced on, and that ECG workers will have 5 years of whatever employment. What happens after 5 years? What happens to the management? I'm closing, but these are things that should come out. Yeah. Because the document says that only 14 to 16 people from Electricity Corporation of Ghana will be left for monitoring. If you are the owner of a facility, who determines how many people should be part of your monitoring thing? So straight away, it's not about investing in some partnership, but it's a complete sale of Electricity Corporation. And that is what we have to recognize. You see, we are talking about bringing in resources to finance this whole process. 500 million in 5 years. Please, government, pay Electricity Corporation the debt you owe. Then the private investors, 610 million is quite significant, Ghana cedis, and 970 million is quite significant. If these are paid, the Electricity Corporation would have money to begin some processes of fixing the problems that we face in the country. Beyond that, I also know that there are renewable energy sources in the country. If somebody wants to invest to promote electricity, please invest in renewable natural energy.
Mrs. Hannah Owusu Granting is with the Wasa Association of Communities Affected by Mining, WACAM. Yes, and Fari there, but I would plead with you because of our time arrangements and the fact that we are live on 99.7 and the time constraints involved, to please stick within the timing. I'm sure there will be more discussions later on. And of course, she made a couple of points that I may not get a chance to reiterate before we move on to our very next speaker. The next speaker is coming from the ISODEC, the Integrated Social Development Center. They've actually been in the forefront of fighting social discrimination, social protection issues for a very, very long time. The representative of the ISODEC today here is in the person of Leonard Korte. And can we hear for Leonard Korte? Leonard is actually the coordinator of the Essential Services Platform of ISODEC, and he will tell us the position of ISODEC on this all-important discussion.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, moderator. Good afternoon, all present. Good afternoon, Comrade Chair. All protocols observed. And indeed, we are happy to express our solidarity with the Coalition Against Concession of the Electricity Company of Ghana this afternoon. Indeed, we do so recognizing that the specific objective of the coalition coincides with ours as a whole, and that is the objective of resisting the attempts to replace government with private businesses in basic social services delivery, being it in education, health, water, or electricity. And we've seen these attempts. And these attempts, the reason why we are worried is because these undermine the ordinary governance relationships that should exist between citizens and their government, which is solely based on the basis of rights. So now, if we should have this transfer of assets, transfer of decisions pertaining to distribution, who gets electricity and who do not get, for the next 25 years, what will be the basis of the rural folk or folks walking to the prospective operator or prospective concessionaire to demand? Because the relationship between the market or the private actor and citizens is based on profit. And if you do not have that element of that accrues profit for the private sector, I mean, you have no say with them. And here's a situation where government has given or transferred these rights to the market. So this is one of the reasons why we express solidarity with the conveners of this platform. And we hoping that this movement will be as successful and impactful as a similar coalition that resisted and triumphed over the attempt to privatize water. And here I refer to the erstwhile National Coalition Against Privatization of Water. Indeed, a similar forum was convened at the beginning of the attempts to privatize the sector. And amidst several protestations, I mean, government went ahead, and the summary of it is that by 2006, we had what they refer to as a management contract. And by 2011, the Ministry of Water Resources, Works and Housing announced to the public that they are unable to continue with the management contract with Aquavitens then because it had been a failure. And it looks like we are going another full circle again. Similar arguments for and against, but then different actors now. So basically, we stand against this attempt for these reasons, for the same reasons that we were against the privatization of water. Because we cannot support policy decisions which attempts to take over essential public assets for the benefit of private persons. We are told that PSPs will bring about some level of competition as a benefit of the free market enterprise. But then, how can this be guaranteed when you're dealing with a monopoly? And then how can this be guaranteed where you have the transaction advisor recommending that in this arrangement, ECG's obligations and contingent liabilities should be guaranteed for by the government of Ghana. So you are a private actor, but then you still need some cushioning from government. So with that cushioning, where will that notion of efficiency, which is squeezed on you by the realities of the market, set in? So for this reason also, we stand against this attempt. And we can also support policy decisions that potentially deny essential services to the low income bracket of our population. Indeed, during the reforms within the water sector, we had similar arguments. I said, I mean, it's just a replay of the arguments that we had during the attempt to privatize water. Now, the colleagues from MIDA are now talking about the access projects, which will provide some reprieve for rural folks. We had a similar argument when the water reforms policy was being discussed and in the implementation. I know, or you may recall, that before the reforms, Ghana Water Company Limited services both urban and rural areas. As a result of the reforms, we had a separation between urban water and rural water because the sole objective of the prospective private company that was coming in, which is profit, cannot be realized within the rural settings. So the question is, if we cannot attain that profit objective within the rural settings, then we don't need it. Cut it off and give us the juicy parts. So that is what brought about an agency like the Community Water and Sanitation Agency, which is poorly resourced now. And that explains the difficulties that we have when it comes to access to water within the rural areas. Today, we are again being told that we'll have a similar, because the objective of efficiency, the private motive of the concessionaire, whatever name we call it, will not be realized in these areas, and therefore they will not venture there. So we will have a similar outcome. And I don't think that the token access projects will fully satisfy the requirements of the rural electrification project, which is very urgent in order to bridge the rural-urban divide. And we cannot also, reference has been made to the attempt to control the PURC. And this is something that came out clear in some of the documents that we've seen. But then they call it collaboration with the PURC, or so as a recommendation. But then how can you have such a collaboration with a public institution which is supposed to be independent? Even the suggestion of that in the first place means that there is an attempt to undermine the independence of the commission. So I think there are so many things that should prompt one to raise the red flags on this whole arrangement. Lastly, we cannot support this policy decision, which will have negative impacts on jobs. I think now the whole arrangement is also trying to be smart with words. Not privatization, concessions, not downsizing, right sizing. But whatever sizing is envisaged, jobs will be lost after the first 5 years. And the number of jobs to be lost within the sector is not yet known. I think it is for the concessionaire eventually to determine. But then jobs that will also be lost as a result of rising tariffs and what have you has also not been quantified. So we cannot but say this particular arrangement will not benefit the people of Ghana, especially also when we know that this whole project emanates from a feasibility study conducted by the U.S. Army. There's this document that we saw, Power Distribution Feasibility Studies, Phase 2 Feasibility Assessment of the Electricity Company of Ghana, authored by the U.S. Army Corps Engineers, Europe District. Whatever the motivation is for the U.S. to undertake such a study, we know that our interest as a country, citizens, and as a people will be secondary to that of the U.S. So I end with the question that is our lunch money being forced out of our hands by a bigger power with the acquiescence of our government? Thank you.
And thank you so much, Mr. Korte. You heard Korte is actually with Okay, Shankote is actually where the Integrated Social Development Center, and thoughts from that particular grouping very much expressed there. Let's move on, and the organizers of this program have a say. We obviously know of itself, so let's hear from the coalition.
So those are just some highlights of that live event happening at the Alisa Hotel. The Coalition Against the Privatization of ECG have been able to bring in some civil society organizations who also share their thoughts on whether or not the decision to hand ECG to a private concessionaire should be the way to go. So let's see whether these views in any way will inform key decisions that will have to be taken in the coming days when it comes to this issue. Remember that in Parliament, this agreement was already signed, sealed, and delivered. Will this result in a reversal of that decision? We will only wait to see. After the break, we'll get to speak to the man who is seeking your votes in this year's elections. He's not your typical politician, he's a man of God. Details after the break.